Good evening, everyone. I'm Jason Barbeck, co-founder and executive director of CIFF, the Canadian International Faith and Family Film Festival. And here we are, year 5, and going strong. Very excited to be here. This is the writing room, or the writer's room. Writers who write for faith or family and telling their stories from their hearts. And it all begins here, the power of the pen. So I'm going to introduce my friends here and they're going to talk about themselves. So let's start with you, Hannah.
Hi, my name is Hannah Ratnam and I live in Vancouver, BC, Canada. I and my friend and co-writer and my sister, Shelly Pano, we have written Hannah's Dream, our first script. And recently we finished another script called Courageous, a true story of Hannah.
Shelly.
Hello, I am Shelly Pano, and I've been writing scripts specifically for probably 20, maybe 25 years. For most of that time, I had a day job and I would write in my spare time. And about a year and a half ago, I lost/quit that day job and I was able to jump into writing full time. And I've never been happier to be doing that. So when I first started screenwriting, faith-based film wasn't really an industry, at least not as much as it is now. And I was really so glad over the last couple, probably the last decade, to see it just grow and grow and grow, because I was like, I want to do that, but I don't know how. And so now that it's an industry that you can actually get into, that's because it just combines two loves for me. So a few years ago, I met Hannah and we started writing her true stories together. And those have done very well. So we're working to develop those and raise funds for those. And as far as other writing, I'm kind of working a lot on assignment now. I ghostwrite, I rewrite for films going into production. So that's been really exciting. I've met a lot of people. So that's kind of what I'm doing right now. I'm trying to write my own ideas as well, but other things take precedence. And those are fun projects too. So
Sure. Thank you. Awesome. Well, it's amazing because this panel, the writer's room, and the power of the pen, I like to say, reminds me of Proverbs 18:21, which is the tongue has the power of life and death. But the pen also has the power of life and death, because we're creating life and we can destroy life. It can be done very eloquently or very harshly, depending on the situation of the writer or the mood that they're in on the day. So I find that fascinating, that this is where it all begins. It starts with a script, and then it just magically grows into a village, really, because it takes a village to make a film or a TV series. And then you have the writer's vision, then you have the director's vision, the producer's vision, then you have the actor's vision. And then somehow they all have to come together to sort of like merge into one vision that often changes, just like a rewrite, because as we all know, there's never one script. It's always writing is rewriting, isn't it? And Shelly, how's been your experience with writing? Do you find you write from a perspective of seeing the end game of it being produced?
Yeah, I try to, absolutely. I think early on it was just I wrote whatever I thought I would want to see. Like, if I like that movie, then other people will too. And finally, somebody else was reading something, and when she got back to me with her kind of response, she was like, "Who's your audience?" And I was just like, I don't know. And so you start to think of it more from that point of view. Just because I want to see something maybe doesn't mean that a lot of people will. And then you start to say, how do I reach that audience once I know who I'm writing for? How do I make this more visual? How do I make this kind of like he was saying, jump off the page and be something that's visually interesting? So
Yeah, it's a good point. we need people to give us that guidance along the way so that we can get to the place we want to be. And Hannah, for example, when you started writing, you wrote these stories that happened to you, correct? These were like real life stories that touched your life and many people around you. So I suppose for you, it was a case of just getting the words out on the page and just getting the story out. And then you could go and start editing a kind of formula, as it were, especially if you want to make a film, because there is a distinct formula down the road. How did that unfold for you?
To be honest with you, I don't know anything about writing. I'm not a writer. I don't know how to write. Shelly is a blessing to me, and I just have a story, and that's what is happened in my life. Since I'm Pakistani Christian, dealt with persecution in all area of my life. So that story, spiritually and mentally, was going in my body all the time, nonstop. And then I prayed and I said, Lord, I don't know how to write. And one day I just posted on the Facebook, and Shelly replied right away. And she said, let's do it. And I said, let's do it. So that's how we just start writing. Hannah's Dream is pure true event which has happened in back home on 22nd September 2013. There was two suicidal bombers who blast that church, and I saw that in my dream 3 days ago. So that is exactly what we she tried to put in my she took my dream and she put on the paper, in other words. So that's what we did, and I just gave her all the information. This happened, that happened, this was there, this was not. So we really, really prayed before writing and while we were writing. And every day we write something, and I said, we need to pray. And then, I don't know, God took over with this project, and by God's grace, Hannah's Dream has received 17 awards by now.
Oh, wow. Fantastic. I guess that was meant to be written.
Yeah.
And do any of you follow, for myself, when I'm writing, I touched upon someone named Blake Snyder, Save the Cat. I'm sure you've all heard of him. His mentor was Sid Field, who wrote a book called Screenplay. And I think he was behind the work in Chinatown. He helped write that, I believe, years ago. So it's amazing to listen to these guys talk about the formula. You get into the distinct breakdown now of what happens at page 22, 25 to 30-ish, where, plot point one hits and, break into two, and all these different phrases that they call it, dark night of the soul, all is lost, and the finale. I find that stuff fascinating because they've actually put it into a formula. And if you watch a movie and you can time it, you can see these things unfolding just like the formula states, but then you have a creative way of how to do it. And I remember when Tarantino came out, when he was doing his films, everyone thought, oh, he's breaking all the rules. And it's like, well, actually, he's not at all. If you go back and look, he's not breaking the rules at all. He's just doing it in a little creative way. Do you guys find that challenge as well, Shelly or Hannah, when you're writing? Do you find you get those lull moments? So let's say you're telling the nugget of your story. Okay, this church blows up, the suicide bomber, and you have this epic story. What about filling in the blanks in between? Do you find that tough to fight through those lulls of the story, even character development, say story A, B, C, and D, as it were?
Right. When I was talking to Hannah originally about the story, it's funny because the more, and I heard it said early on that you learn the rules so you can break them. But for me, once I learned the rules of the beat sheet and that kind of thing, I actually grew to really like the rules. And so and it's become second nature. So when I was talking to Hannah and she would be telling me the story, I'm like, there's the first turning point. There's the fun and games part. There's, and there was so much to learn about Pakistan and just about the culture and I had to tell her so many times, I'm like, we don't hear about the things that you're telling me. I've never heard this because our news, they don't tell us much about Pakistan. So it was a lot of research, and it was just a lot of learning about the culture. And I feel like all of those little things and putting in there things that made her who she was, so that at the time that these turning points happen, the audience is with her and they understand why she's reacting the way she is. And I find a lot of her story really interesting. So it was even my own curiosity saying, that there are times when it's not as dramatic, but you're still keeping interest because you're in this person's shoes and you're experiencing things that, especially in my life, I've never experienced. So it's a life that has a lot of danger just in the day-to-day, just living there and being a woman and being a Christian is dangerous in itself. So it was fun for me to fill in all of that as we worked, and to go ahead and try to take a true story. How do I fit this into the beat sheet and make all these things happen? So we did kind of jump around, is this better shown in flashback? Because I've got to get to that first turning point. And so it was an interesting challenge, and I really like challenges. So it was fun to kind of play around with it. And sometimes we did move things around after it was written, which I try not to do, but suddenly I realized that this scene that happens in real time is so much better if we show it earlier or move it to later and then show it in flashback so that people are like, oh, that's, what was happening there. So that's just been an interesting challenge.
Right, Hannah. Sorry. No, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
To write Hannah's dream, as I mentioned, I had a dream on 19 September 2013, and we wrote the script in 2020. So all that time, even before meeting Shelly, I was praying, interceding, fasting, and asking Lord, how do I do that? I don't know how to do that. I don't know where to go and find the script writer. I did all my research, contacts, everything. I told I need this story to be done. I went to ICVM in 2017, and there, one of the, I think, producer or director, he told me, he said, you cannot show your story like dream. You have to write down on the script format. So coming back, again praying, again asking Lord, who do I ask for? So there was a time, just me, my God, in that corner praying and asking for the right person to write. And there was a time when I was asking God to tell me how I have to tell this story. So it's so long, and it took so much years just to put that on that piece of paper. And maybe I think this was the way Shelly and I met, and I think this was meant for us, and that's how we wrote Hannah's Dream and Courageous, a true story of Hannah.
And what is Courageous an offshoot of that story?
No, Courageous is a story about my childhood, my education, and the struggle and the persecution attached to that, and how a woman fights alone with everybody. So I was like a cowboy that time. I used to fight with everybody and struggle with everyone and make sure that what I'm saying is right. And I did a lot of sacrifices with that. I did not get married to a Pakistani man. I did not want to stay in Pakistan. I want to leave Pakistan, move from there and go somewhere. And then eventually having an MBA degree was another struggle. And then I found that struggle in my, I won't say struggle, persecution in my office. My boss never wanted me to study because I'm Christian, I'm a woman, and there's a word they call for Christians, sweepers. And he always used to tell me, you're just a sweeper, you can't do this much. And I said, I'll show you. And if you challenge me, I'll prove you. So that's like very big thing, which I did back home. And I fought with him, literally. And God was with me, my mom prayers were with me, and I just did my MBA and I left. I left permanently in 2000 Pakistan. I got an opportunity to leave through an exhibition which was going to Dubai. And there I just had an opportunity. I got enrolled with the exhibition, with the trade show. And I went and I never turned back until I decided, no means no.
Yeah, in Pakistan, if you're a woman, you're more expected to get married and move in with a husband, and then the husband is the man. You know, most girls are very much discouraged to get any kind of college education, much less a Christian woman. It was almost impossible. So, and it was so fun to write her as a real character who would stand up to these men. I mean, in that culture, if you stand up to a man, it's, you know, they can throw acid on your face. It happens. And so it was, you know, she learned to drive. That's almost unheard of. And the streets there are nuts. So we put in this scene where she's, you know, just learning to drive this car in this crazy situation. And on top of it all, she's a woman and she's a Christian, and, you know, not even supposed to be like allowed to be out. So yeah, we definitely highlighted all of the miracles that God did to open all those doors to get her, because there's things that we cannot do in a culture like that on our own. We need God with us. So the miracles that happened were amazing. I was like, I need, this story needs to be told, because the miracles that happened, nobody would believe it. And I've let people read the script and they said, did that all really happen? It really happened. So it's fun that it's actually a true story and that people aren't even believing that it's real, the stuff that God did. So
I was proposed when I was in grade 11 or maybe 12. And by birth, my cousin and myself, we were like kind of engaged within the family. And it was very tough for me to say no to him and no to my family. So that was my biggest struggle, and standing and saying, no, I'm not getting married right now. I have to study. I have to leave the country. And everybody, why you want to leave the country? You have everything here. And I said, no, this is not where I want to live my life. So saying no to so many men was really, really tough there.
Would Hannah's story have a market in India and Pakistan?
Yes, very much. But I cannot go to Pakistan, because if they come to know that I'm making something against the religion, then they can create trouble, put a ban, or just accuse that, oh, I'm doing blasphemy, blah, blah, blah. So this is very common there. They can just blame you for something. And where I live, there are many people around me as well. So I don't think so going to Pakistan. I don't know, my heart is not prepared for that. And I don't want to go to Pakistan anymore.
But the film could go in your place.
That's right. The film's universal.
But I have been contacted from some Indian filmmakers, and they are very much interested in the story. I have not had any conversation or any agreement, like official one, but just like general talk. And I'm praying. Again, I don't want to rush. I'm not in a hurry. And I'm not just wanting to just make it. I want this, a real groundwork done, and God wants to take this project and then fly. That's what I'm praying for. So I'm not just going with everybody and anybody. No, this is not my plan.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye.
Jay, so much for having
Thank you
us.
so much. God bless.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Bye.
I